have a favorite stomper. I think each stomper has such its own personality, which is kind of silly to say, considering that it's just a sculpture made from sneakers.
They're the perfect social lubricant for getting conversations going.
It is a really nice artistic expression of something that we all deal with. Something that everyone carries with them every single day, your own inner turmoil and battles.
My older sister, Jana, faced a lot of different challenges in her life. Mental health wasn't something that was talked a lot about as a family, and we didn't always know how to support her or engage in these types of conversations. After Jana died, I wanted to do something that changed the conversations around mental health. I came up with the idea for the Jana Marie Foundation. One of our main missions is being a resource for parents and caregivers and educators about mental health and suicide prevention. It's not always easy to talk about mental health, so when we were thinking about ways that we could use art as a vehicle in sparking those conversations, we came up with the idea that we could make a sculpture from recycled sneakers, symbolizing stomping out the stigma that often surrounds mental and emotional health.
I think the Stompers Project is one of the genius projects of the Jana Marie Foundation. The project you're working on, building this sculpture, is an excuse in so many ways to bring you together and to talk about issues that may be troubling you or that you know are difficult issues in the community that you'd like to help with. Anxiety, depression, bipolar, suicidal ideation, whatever it happens to be, it may be specific to an individual, but in a community that affects hundreds, perhaps thousands of individuals. So the Stompers Project can bring a community together, get them engaged in something that's creative, that's fun, that allows them to interact, to make connections, to feel a sense of accomplishment. The Stompers Project is using what we know about human nature in a brilliant kind of way.
For our Stompers to be born, we start working with an organization. We'll have some planning meetings, really focusing on what their hope and their goals are. And we will then develop a curriculum using evidence-based practices, and then we'll deliver that to a group of individuals. They'll learn about the resources that are available, and then they'll get to decorate a piece of deconstructed sneaker. And that will become a little bit of their story as it relates to the topic that we're discussing.
Every stomper is unique to where it's installed or the story it tells. And our story that's being told is the story of service. So our stomper's name is Serve. It was made by those men and women and those children of the fallen soldiers, those KIA'd, or those who had taken their own life. So it was a really nice way of physically being able to release that emotion for these families. It was kind of a moment of catharsis to cut up these shoes, to stomp out the stigma of self-harm and self-ideation not being talked about. When people arrive here, they're very surprised to learn about his story. It's a very uniting thing, being able to interact with that story very personally and at your own level, whether you're in uniform or ununiformed. The battlefield of your mind is equal to all. What's really nice is that Marissa has incorporated the QR codes for those mental health resources on the Stomper labels. That way, when you're taking a photograph, you can tap that QR code in the photo and brings up those resources, and nobody else around you knows. No one's going to know that perhaps the reason you're taking the photo is you need help, or maybe somebody in your family needs help. And so it's a fantastic passive way of having a very active conversation be started.
Consuelo is being created with the Center for Performing Arts at Penn State. About a decade ago, we did one of our first Stompers Buddy here at Mount Nittany Middle School. So it's really exciting being able to be back in the middle school. And I'm really excited to be able to have you all participate in designing this Stomper to help educate about that importance of mental health. The Center for Performing Arts really wanted to have something created by the community that helps to educate about the ways that the theater can really help us with building connection as well as community healing that often takes place through the arts.
So based on what you just discussed in your groups, what are some ways that being creative can help us connect with each other, with other people? What do you think?
When you share the way that you're creative with someone else, it can help you really connect.
Absolutely.
We really stress too that it's not always about that finished product, but it's the process of being able to engage in art in a way that allows us to process through our different emotions and different thoughts that we have.
This is what the final product looks like. So y'all are just painting these little pieces of what's gonna be this giant statue, so it's pretty cool.
The students were really excited about making the Stomper and having their voices heard a little bit. It's not just like, here, let's talk about your mental health. It's, let's do something you love and have conversations at the same time.
It's really fun just watching the kids connect, getting to talk and play together.
It's tough to be a teenager and a middle schooler, especially the last few years, obviously coming out of COVID and things like that. So to be able to help with that and to like bridge that gap through high school is really a lot of fun.
After the session, the students share the piece that they create with their family and then also share about what they learned with that Stomper. So that conversation then is going from out of the classroom right to other family members and community members that might be touched by these topics.
When I was a child, I had struggles with anxiety and depression, and the answer was to be found in silence. You didn't have feelings. You certainly didn't have negative feelings or feelings of depression or weakness. But over the years, I've seen an easing up of our ability to have conversations around mental health. Mental health issues affect nearly half of the global population at some point by age 40. Depression and anxiety. Now I think we are not nearly as ashamed to acknowledge that mental illness is real. And I think the more of us that just keep walking through that door and saying, no, let's talk about this, it's just going to get easier and easier.
The language barrier.
I think the willingness to have the conversation has changed, and the best way to sometimes destigmatize it is to just talk about it. And by having those resources being brought by Marissa and the Jana Marie Foundation, people know how to speak up and speak out and do so from a place of kindness.
My name's Thea and I like to...
We know that support networks are so incredibly important for our mental health and wellness. And sometimes in the day-to-day shuffle, we forget about making time for those opportunities. And the Stompers Project allows us that platform.
I think organizations like the Jana Marie Foundation are reflective of the community that they serve. And I think out of a tragic moment, they have made such a beautiful contribution to the community. You know, how many people are still with us because of the work that they do?
I think Marissa and the people that support that work understand deeply the value of community and of community engagement, particularly if you're trying to address a problem that affects the community.
I think Jana would have loved the Stompers Project. I think that the process of the creation of the Stomper would have been healing for her. You know, it takes a village for all of us. And I hope that our community can continue talking about mental health and really build those spaces where we can focus on our own self-care and well-being and the self-care and well-being for others in our community.
Videos like this are made possible by support from viewers like you. If you enjoyed this video, visit WPSU.org to become a member today and help us create more content like this.